At 6:47 on a Saturday morning, I opened my front door and found myself staring at what looked like a suburban military invasion. A vinyl banner stretched across my driveway read in bold patriotic letters, "Annexation commences at dawn." The HOA president from the neighborhood down the hill stood there in khaki camouflage and a whistle flanked by her board members wielding measuring tapes like bayonets. Someone was banging a rhythm on a plastic bowl as if this was a marching parade. I stood there in my flannel pajamas clutching my mug of coffee that had already gone cold, realizing my quiet home was under siege. My name is Miles Granger. I'm a software engineer by trade, a backyard grill guy by choice, and proudly allergic to committees of any kind. Just 2 months earlier, I'd bought a small ranch house by the river in a little town called Thornapple Bluffs. I chose this place because it was outside any HOA's grasp. I wanted birdsong instead of bylaws, natural landscaping instead of mandated grass heights. I thought I'd finally found peace. I was wrong. The enemy had a name, Regina Halford, president of the Willowcrest Preserve HOA. Imagine helmet hair stiff enough to stop a bullet, a permanent clipboard in her hand, and a voice that read like fine print on a freezer manual. The very first time she approached me, she announced with complete seriousness, "I regulate vibes for the greater good of property values." I leaned on my rake, smiled politely, and said, "Good luck with mine, they're pretty unregulated." That's when the games began. First came glossy pamphlets in my mailbox promising me voluntary assimilation into their HOA. For a mere surrender of my independence, I'd gain access to pergolas and a butterfly garden. They even promised my home's value would go up by exactly 17.3%, as if they had a crystal ball. Then came the letter's official-looking documents accusing me of violations I couldn't possibly commit. Wrong shade of mulch, wind chimes too loud during moderate breezes, and a mailbox apparently freelance instead of from their approved vendor. It would have been laughable, except they escalated. Regina had cameras installed on poles angled directly at my yard, calling it boundary compliance verification. Her board members wandered by at all hours, clipboards in hand, sighing dramatically at my lawn. One even snapped high-resolution photos of my dandelions like they were contraband. On the HOA's online forum, they blasted me as the new loner, threatening harmony, posting zoomed-in pictures of my house as if I were some kind of criminal. I reminded them politely but firmly that I wasn't part of Willowcrest, and never would be. That's when Regina smiled with every bleached tooth in her mouth and said softly, "We can fix that little technicality." And she meant it. She marched straight to the county clerk with a hand-drawn map in Microsoft Paint expanding Willowcrest's borders to cover my entire street, the river behind me, even the city park. The clerk laughed so hard she stamped it rejected in under 20 minutes. But Regina didn't quit. She sent me a draft notice on fake parchment paper ordering me to report for an architectural conscription interview at 0800 hours Monday. I ignored it, of course, but then she staged a full-blown operation. Barricades blocking my driveway, a rent-a-guard, and a neon vest board members posted on corners with walkie-talkies. She even called the sheriff, claiming I was defying a lawful neighborhood order. When the deputy arrived, he studied my deed, looked at her map complete with a hand-drawn eagle and the words "Manifest Destiny," and radioed in with words I'll never forget. Possible filing of false instruments. Potential harassment charges. That should have been my victory moment, but it wasn't. Because at night alone in my house I felt something else creeping in fear. I started to wonder if maybe I was the one in the wrong. My neighbors across the way stopped waving. A couple of them muttered about me not being a team player. I lay awake wondering if it was worth it, worth the stress, worth being targeted. For a brief moment I thought about giving in. Maybe joining their ridiculous HOA was easier than fighting. Maybe they were right. But then came my turning point. I found a real estate attorney named Leah Parrots. She spoke in this calm, steady tone that could have soothed a rattlesnake. "Miles," she said, "Regina just handed you a slam dunk." We filed immediately, Injunction quiet title action and a trespass notice served to Regina while she was busy measuring my garbage cans with a yardstick. The court granted a temporary restraining order. No cameras, no contact, no annexation. For the first time, I felt like the tide had turned. Discovery was like cracking open a piñata, filled not with candy, but with incriminating evidence. Emails where Regina told her board to treat me like I was already under their rule. A draft newsletter titled, "Welcome New Subjects," listing my address under recent acquisitions. Meeting notes about hiring fake code enforcement officers. And unbelievably, a budget line for ceremonial sashes and annexation cake half spent on a cake sitting in someone's freezer. The county attorney saw it all and jumped in on my side, flagging her for slander of title forgery and abuse of process. When court day came, the gallery filled with curious residents. Regina rolled in a trifold display labeled "Emergency Community Sovereignty" in glittering letters. She clicked through a PowerPoint that used the Jaws theme, claiming my house threatened architectural cohesion and lowered property values by 12%. She cited Section 9.3 subsection C of their bylaws, which according to her authorized peaceful annexation by force. My lawyer Leah asked calmly, "Can we see the original Section 9.3C? The judge's eyebrow arched. Turned out that page was a forgery. Wrong font, wrong footer, and signed by a secretary who had quit years earlier after some chili cook-off scandal. The county records clerk produced the real plat from 1973, which clearly excluded my property forever. Even an addendum stated in bold, "No expansion without unanimous consent of adjacent owners and county approval." That was it. The judge's face tightened, his voice sharp as steel. He declared Regina's filings fraudulent and possibly criminal. He ordered the HOA to pay all my legal fees and court costs. He went further. Regina personally had to pay $15,000 for harassment, another $10,000 in punitive damages, and was permanently banned from serving in any HOA leadership role for 7 years. The Attorney General's office piled on probation fines and 200 hours repainting the city park fences she once tried to annex under the watchful eye of the same deputy she'd summoned against me. I'll never forget the sound when the gavel fell. The gallery gasped. Regina's face shifted from red to pale green, and her clipboard slipped from her manicured fingers to the courtroom floor. That image, her mouth opening and closing like a stunned fish, was the exact moment her reign of suburban terror ended. And that's where my story stops. No victory parade, no backyard barbecue celebration. Just the sight of a self-proclaimed queen stripped of her crown by the very laws she twisted. In the end, the lesson was simple. Bullies thrive on intimidation, but they collapse the moment you stand your ground with the truth and the law.